Hello, I am Oriana, and I am here to talk to you today about myself as a leader and also my changes and the things that I've learned through this organizational leadership program. So let's begin. When I began as a student within the organizational leadership program, I was an empathetic and extremely democratic leader. I believed that meeting people's needs is what led people to produce results, and that a leader should share the decision making power completely with those around them. Within the classroom, this still held true for me at that time. I engaged in consequential behavior that was consistent and thought that grace with students would yield me improved relationships and improve their learning. Servant leadership was a perfect description of what I thought worked and was the best way to lead and motivate students. Now, within each class of this program, it's centered around modern business needs and roles that leadership plays in a successful organization. I learned that leadership is not a one size fits all role in my leadership theory class. Um, the needs of organizations in today's world require diverse, ethical, and educated leaders. The world's more connected than ever, and this connectivity allows leaders to rise from all kinds of backgrounds, but there are common factors that give certain leaders an edge over others. Issues in organizational leadership and leadership theory are the classes that help to explore these topics and allow me to increase my understanding of leadership, what a leader is, what they do, differences between management and leadership, their role within the organization, all of these things that are very important for an educated leader in today's modern world. I also learned that leadership is a process, and this process includes followers in the situations that leaders find themselves in. So, this process usually flourishes when leaders build a strong bond of trust between themselves and their followers. This trust can be built in a myriad of ways, one of which is ethical behaviors and practices. This is why behavior ethics and leadership was immensely beneficial class for me in this program. It posed questions on ethical leadership, what it looked like, and how it affects organizations. And within this part of the program, the thing that stuck out to me most was that what how do we decide what is ethical and what is right? So at the end of this course, I was given a case study, and it brought up the question, if there are not regulations around something, or if there are not rights, like for instance, before seatbelts, there was no regulations that cars had to have seatbelts. Manufacturers knew that this was an issue and that this was more dangerous for customers, but there was no regulations on it, and so they didn't provide this. So the ethical question that comes into place is it wrong to produce a product that meets regulations but is still dangerous? And that's something that I think about in my leadership and I use today, um, within my role in the school. I constantly think, regardless of the regulations, is this right? Is this morally acceptable? Am I making the right decisions, even though there are not regulations or other things surrounding the topic that force me to act or behave or perform in a certain way? And that was huge for me as a leader, especially as an educational leader. The other course, data driven decision making, taught me, which is probably simple, but it taught me how valuable it is to use relevant data that's going to be useful to you, useful data. And so determining what is useful data, that's not even something that I used to think about. I used to just come up with a data point to track, and that would be the end of it. I would never think further into why this data point, what other data points, what things could I be looking at. And data driven decision making really brought that forward for me. And going into an educational role, data is so necessary that I appreciate having that experience and being able to learn not only what useful data is, what different types of data there are, how these data are collected, but also how to interpret that data and analyze that, which is so important in a world that uses data to drive modern decisions. So as I spoke, I started this as a democratic leader, a servant leader, and while I have completed these courses, I have evolved and improved as a leader. So today I am much more aware of how situations play a role in a leader's success. I understand that I am not the best leader in every situation. For instance, in school, if a student comes up to me and they are crying, something maybe dramatic or emotional has happened, and I'm about to enter a class and have to engage 20 other students, I am not the best leader at that moment to help her in this situation. It's not me. And so being able to identify that and then point her in the direction of an appropriate leader is something that has changed for me. Before, I would try to tackle every leadership situation myself. I'm the leader, I'm the one who has to be in this. And now I can step back and say, am I the right leader for this situation? And analyze that before I even continue within the leadership process. I have spent a better amount of time understanding what situation responds to what leader behavior as well, so that when I am in situations in the classroom, I can alter my leadership style. For instance, if I have a student who is a chronic sleeper, maybe he's not turning in work or completing any work, I'm going to handle this person completely different with a different leadership style than I would the student who is always on time, turns in work, participates in class. They are going to have two completely different leaders to deal with because their situations are different and their needs and maturity levels are different. And I can thank Hersey and Blanchard for that one. I still am a very servant leader, and I do believe ultimately that people want to do well, that they want to be good. And so I use that to build my relationships and improve myself as a leader for them. Now, finishing up this course, the question is, where will I go? What will I do from here? And as I progress in my career from this point, I will be put in more leadership roles, more direct leadership roles than I have been in the education system. I will go from being an assistant leader of sorts to the primary leader, the one that when questions arise, when there's a situation, people's eyes are going to look at me. And so for me, it's important that I remain up to date as a leader. I learned all of this information and that's great, but if I don't continue to invest time educating myself, training myself and making myself a knowledgeable leader, then I will not be effective. At the end of the day, this information will only last as long as I use it and continue to build on these skills. I also need to work on, for me as a leader, engaging in more autocratic decision making. My style is very democratic, and so the leadership roles I'll be in from here on out, I am the sole leader. I'm working with people who are lower in maturity levels, lower in age, who there's lots of times they cannot be a part of the decision making process. And so that is something that I am going to have to get used to and invest time in learning and practicing my skills. I am very excited where this is going to lead me what these courses have taught me because before I was an inconfident leader. I had been recognized as a leader among peers often, but I never saw that or identified myself as a leader. Now I do. And for my path forward, that is so instrumental because now that I recognize myself as a leader, I can analyze myself, I can improve myself, and I can remain strong to be successful and be effective with my followers and within the process. So I look forward to my journey. I look forward to becoming a better leader. And I thank this course for everything and this program for all that it's given me. Thank you.